Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to discuss better defensible decisions. Perils and remedies. Why better defensible decisions? Well, all decisions have to be better, and most certainly they need to be defensible. First, an apology. I have a multicultural background. Unfortunately, I am not very politically correct. So please excuse any slip-ups. My challenge today is to convince you of what I am preaching. It's about creating belief. Your challenge should be to convince yourself of what changes you need to make to be better. Please don't misunderstand my passion and desire to create belief in you as arrogance or an ego trip. I live by 3 words, which is learn, earn, and return. I learned and I earned. Now I want to return. I hope I can make a difference in your life. Imagine you have a 12-year-old daughter who wants to become a model. So she goes to the modeling school and the teacher says, "Honey, let us show you how to walk." And she says, "No, but I've been walking all my life." No, models have a different way to walk. I know you have been making decisions all your life, but now we have to change. So our struggle is to unlearn you. I think the best place to start today is to tell you who I am. Because if you don't know who I am, why even listen to me? Well, I started life as a trainee mechanic, being a welder, a blacksmith, a foundryman, etc. Then I went on to get my mechanical engineering degree and a PhD in fluid mechanics from England. I worked mostly as a research scientist and a university professor, and for over 35 years I was also an oil and gas consultant. I was always intrigued by business, so I owned and operated 2 retail liquor stores in Houston, Texas, founded a leasing company, and also founded a procurement company. Since 1999, I have been working as a management consultant and a trainer. I sit on the board of 3 U.S. organizations, and I'm also a former election judge. My success is because I ask 2 questions. Why and why not? I hope today you will also ask some questions, because that's the only way to learn. I specialize in decision making and negotiating, because every action is a decision and every interaction is a negotiation. Furthermore, in life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. Today's session objectives are basically twofold: to look at the issues that we face when making decisions, and to provide you with some insights on how to remedy these. Moderators, I need 2 or at least 1. His or her function would be to admit all attendees, to comment on any issues, and to respond to any questions I might have. Because while delivering the session, I cannot stop to attend to these. Any volunteers? By the way, if you have any questions, please raise hand. While presenting, I will not be able to monitor the chat box. Perils and remedies. What is decision making? It is selecting one or more from a set of alternatives. What decision making is not is more important. It is not problem solving, it is not creative thinking, and it is not feedback control. Problem solving is not decision making. Problem solving is unique to the problem, to the domain expert. A car mechanic knows how to fix the car. An IT guy knows how to solve your IT problems. However, decision making is unique to the person. It's about human judgment. To better explain this, let's say today on your way home, your car engine light comes up. Check engine. You go to Jim, your neighborhood mechanic, and says, "Hey Jim, what's going on here?" He says, "Let's run the diagnostics." Then he comes and says, "You've got a gear train problem." And naturally you ask, "Hey Jim, what do we have to do?" He says, "I can repair it, but I can't promise a shelf life on it. We can replace it with a reconditioned unit." And if you have a few extra dollars, we can actually install a new unit. While you ponder about this, he says, your car's knocking a few years, why didn't you sell? So who did what? Jim solved the problem. You must make the decision. Jim knows nothing about your finances, nor does he know that your daughter in college could use a car for local running, or your mother-in-law could use a car. The president of a nation or an organization does not solve problems. He or she makes decisions. Today we are in a world of big data and VUCA. Our common sense, intuition, logic, experience, etc. could use some help. What I am proposing will most certainly help you make better, defensible decisions. Just a few weeks back, I came across this news item pertaining to the rollout of 5G in the USA. Sadly, somewhere a project or a program manager, he was taken to task.
We were aware of a 5G issue. We were not aware that the power of the antennas in the United States have been doubled compared to what's going on elsewhere. We were not aware that the antenna themselves have been put into a vertical position rather than a slanting position.
You've seen many things. What do you make of a situation where we can get to a position of 5G, which is in other European airports quite safely, and yet the way the rollout has been done in the United States has caused basically potential chaos?
I guess I need to be as candid as I normally am and say this is one of the most delinquent, utterly irresponsible issues, subjects, call it what you like, I've seen in my aviation career. Somebody should have told them a long time ago that it would compromise safety of operation of aircraft in metropolitan areas with catastrophic consequences. So on that basis, we took that decision late last night to suspend all our services.
Let me assure you, ignorance is not a defensible excuse. Ignoring linkage effects can be catastrophic. Let's look at two different companies. Dean Foods, the largest milk producer in the USA since 1922. And WeWork, a startup with a $47 billion valuation. Now, why did I present these two? Well, because they both filed for bankruptcy in 2019. And that was before COVID-19. So the point here is, whether you are a mere startup or a juggernaut, no company is safe. That is why Marshall Goldsmith in his book said, what got you here won't get you there. Let's go back to the times before Google and the internet. It is the year 1950, there's no internet, and you are buying a camera. What do? You look at some magazines with glossy pictures of cameras. You talk to friends who have cameras, touch and feel. And you go to a local shop, probably had 5 cameras, and you pick one up. But today you Google, and you are faced with information overload, ladies and gentlemen, big data. Then you go to a local camera shop and find hundreds of cameras, choice overload. Thanks to the internet, it is now possible to be extremely well informed and yet make suboptimal decisions at the same time. Big data in the corporate world. Imagine a CEO. He has to worry about manpower, distribution, budgets, sales, transport, cash flow, share prices, regulatory issues, market saturation, you name it. He's dealing with big data. So how does the CEO cross from big data to decisions? There's a bridge you got to get across. Well, your bridge is nothing but logic, intuition, judgment, experience, etc. How robust is your bridge? Can you trust your bridge? Imagine your company has a logo design competition and the 5 top submissions would each win a laptop. Your boss does not want to get into the details and ask you to buy. Naturally, you go to your IT department and say, hey guys, I need some help. And they say, you're lucky, man, because just last month we did a study and here is a table that we generated 4 laptops. Wow, you are thrilled, you're delighted, you don't have to do all that groundwork. But then it dawns on you, how would you decide? Well, there are many ways. You could probably go and pray for divine guidance, or maybe find a fortune teller, or take a dictatorial approach and say, my way or the highway. But to be on the safe side, you'd call a team and seek some consensus, or follow established rules, what the IT department does. Look at the historical data and look for patterns like the weatherman and see if you can draw some conclusions. What about gambling or luck? Or maybe even trust your intuition and experience. Logic can certainly help you out. But then on second thoughts, you think, I better delegate this, get the responsibility out of my way. Somebody might even postpone, hoping it'll just go away. Because superstition and tradition has an influence. There is no 13th floor in a high-rise building, and there's no row 13 in a plane. Even big airlines are superstitious. And of course, finally we have analytic methods. Would you knowingly send your car to an untrained mechanic? Of course not. Would you knowingly go to an untrained dentist? Most certainly not. But why not? Because you know he might mess up your car and your mouth. And also you know that a trained person is likely to perform better. Ladies and gentlemen, sadly in many organizations, untrained folk are making crucial decisions. What about famous companies? Do they make bad decisions? Yes, they do.
It's natural to think that judgment, experience, intuition, logic, common sense, etc. is the way to go. In the good old days, this is how great leaders went about their business. Of course, you don't hear of the sob stories and the fiascos. For example, TWA and Pan Am, the pioneers of air travel, are no more. Bad decisions at Kodak led to their bankruptcy. Billionaire Ross Perot admitted that two of his worst decisions were declining partnership opportunities at Home Depot and Microsoft, each worth billions of dollars today. In 2008, Yahoo rejected a $44.6 billion bid from Microsoft. And then in 2017, when Yahoo was put up for sale, Verizon grabbed them for just $4.5 billion. When startup Netflix approached Blockbuster CEO to partner with them, he laughed at the proposition. But a few years later, Netflix forced the bankruptcy of Blockbuster. Coca-Cola invested millions of dollars in developing and launching new Coke, yet they were forced to withdraw it just 3 months after launch. Bad decisions can indeed have catastrophic consequences.
If famous companies like Yahoo, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Kodak, etc. messed up, is it not certain that you too might be in trouble? What got you here won't get you there. Any questions? The decision quotient test. How good a decision maker are you? Do you believe that your senses are infallible? Basically, are you a victim of illusions of infallibility? Let's assess our decision-making prowess. I'd like you to take this test. Better do this on your laptop, even though this is mobile compatible as well. Scan the QR code and you are off to the races. You've got 5 minutes. So how did we do? Did anyone score 100%? Probably not. We can take a look at your score. We presented 5 simple problems. The correct answers to all of them is A. Let's see. The car and the goat.
So here is the explanation. So you pick a door. What are the possibilities? You could have a goat or a car. Since the host knows where the car and the goats are, he opens a door always to show you the goat. If in the first instance you pick a goat and he shows you a goat, you know that by swapping you would get the car. Now if you had picked the car and the host shows the goat, you know you need to stick with the original selection. Now, if you know which one you pick, it's very easy. If it turned out to be a goat, you would swap. If it turned out to be a car, you would stick. But of course, you don't know that. But there is a 67% probability that you would pick a goat and only a 33% probability that you would pick a car. Therefore, because the probability of picking a goat the first time is twice as high,
You should swap.
What did we learn? We learned about the importance of paying attention to probability of events. Married and looking.
Is a married person looking at an unmarried person? You had three choices: yes, no, and need more information. You probably selected C, wanting more information. What would you like to know? You would like to know if Mary is married or if Mary is single. Let's take a look. If Mary is married, Mary is looking at unmarried David. And if Mary is single, married Roger is looking at single Mary. So as you see, the answer is yes. You did not need any additional information. Worst, your common sense failed you.
What did we learn? Even our logic failed us. The blood test, we'll come back to this later. I have an important message to deliver then. Linda's profession.
So what is Linda most likely to be? A bank teller or a bank teller and a part-time music teacher? Consider this class or group. The number of males in this group, that is satisfying one condition, will always be greater than the number of males in this group born in this city, that is satisfying two conditions. Hence, Linda being a bank teller satisfying one condition will always be greater than Linda satisfying two conditions, which is that of being a bank teller and a part-time music teacher. Hence, the most likely scenario is that Linda is a bank teller.
Again, our logic failed us. In the banana in an island.
At first glance, it may seem like player 1 has the advantage, since she'll win if any one of 4 numbers is the highest. But actually, player 2 has an approximately 56% chance of winning each match. One way to see that is to list all the possible combinations you could get by rolling 2 dice, and then count up the ones that each player wins. These are the possibilities for the yellow die. These are the possibilities for the blue die. Each cell in the chart shows a possible combination when you roll both dice. If you roll a 4 and then a 5, we'll mark a player 2 victory in this cell. A 3 and a 1 gives player 1 a victory here. Now we can see why the first glance was wrong. Even though player 1 has 4 winning numbers and player 2 only has 2, the chance of each number being the greatest is not the same. There is only a 1 in 36 chance that 1 will be the highest number, but there's an 11 in 36 chance that 6 will be the highest. So if any of these combinations are rolled, player 1 will win. And if any of these combinations are rolled, player 2 will win. Out of the 36 possible combinations, 16 give the victory to player 1, and 20 give player 2 the win.
When you have data, you need to resort to analytics. Ladies and gentlemen, your common sense was not as reliable as you thought. Hopefully now you recognize the value of an analytical approach to decision making. Any questions? Decision manipulation and contamination. We're all chained to biases that are inherent in our DNA. Others constrain and contaminate the environment to shape our decisions. Some others intentionally manipulate our thought process with well-designed techniques. In our extended program, we identified the many issues that challenge our common sense decision making. These range from cognitive biases to DNA issues and hot and cold, as studied at Yale University, issues of conflict and logic, ghost options, persuasion, etc. In fact, just to give you a flavor of that, let's see what Dr. Daniel Kahneman has to say.
Dr. Daniel Kahneman received the Nobel Prize for his work in the area of behavioral economics. Here he speaks of the two systems that we humans rely on to make decisions.
At the heart of human thinking, there's a conflict between logic and intuition.
This question concerns this nice bottle of champagne I have here. Another Sing 2005, it's a good year, tenderly nice vintage bottle.
These people think they're about to use slow, sensible system 2 to make a rational decision about how much they would pay for a bottle of champagne. But what they don't know is that their decision will actually be taken totally without their knowledge by their hidden, fast autopilot, System 1. And with the help of a bag of ping pong balls, we can influence that decision.
I've got a set of numbered balls here from 1 to 100 in this bag. I'd like to reach in and draw one out at random for me, if you would.
First, they've got to choose a ball.
Number says 10. 10. 10. 10.
They think it's a random number, but in fact it's rigged. All the balls are marked with the low number 10.
What we do is purposefully we give people a first decision that is clearly meaningless. 10.
10, okay. Would you be willing to pay £10 for this nice bottle of vintage champagne?
I would, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
This first decision is meaningless, based as it is on a seemingly random number. But what it does do is lodge the low number 10 in their heads. Now for the real question, where we ask them how much they'd actually pay for the champagne.
What's the maximum amount you think you'd be willing to pay?
20?
Okay. £7. £7, okay.
Probably £10.
A range of fairly low offers. But what happens if we prime people with a much higher number, 65 instead of 10?
What does that one say? 65, okay. Okay, it says 65.
How will this affect the price people are prepared to pay?
What's the maximum you would be willing to pay for this bottle of champagne? 40?
£45.
45, okay.
50.
40 quid, okay.
£50.
£50?
Yeah, I'll pay between 50 and 80 pounds.
Between 50 and 80?
Yeah.
Logic has gone out the window. The price people are prepared to pay is influenced by nothing more than a number written on a ping pong.
So what happened to your logic? Out of the window. Sure, anyone can make a decision and live with the consequences of a suboptimal decisions. I am not going to argue against that, but I can assure you it would be very difficult to defend such a decision in a corporate setting. You must incorporate analytics to reinforce your common sense. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are convinced. Any questions? Let's consider a scenario here. You just won a $1 million lottery. You visit a financial planner who offers you 2 investment options. A safe deposit in a bank or a risky bonds issue. What percentage of your winnings would you place in a CD or FD? Of course, each of you would have a different split. Same data, different decisions? That's why we say data-supported, feelings-driven. Because all decisions are driven by qualitative interpretations of quantitative data. If not for the differences in our interpretations, we would not have a stock market. Because one guy thinks it's a good buy, while another thinks it's a good sell. There are many well-known biases. I don't have time to go through each of these, but beware of unconscious biases. The decision-making process starts with an objective. I want to get married, I want to find a new job, you want to go on a vacation, acquire a new company, start a business, whatever it is. Then you find the likely solutions. And finally you make a decision, relying on some of the techniques that we discussed earlier. But in future, don't make a decision of any nature without criteria. Criteria are factors that influence the decision. Now that we have criteria and candidates, the C and C, we need a process. And finally, we make the decision. The role of the decision maker, after having defined the objective, is A, to identify the criteria, which is the wants, needs, constraints, assumptions, etc. Then get assistance to find all available candidates. This is where creative thinking comes into play. And finally, he or she has to interpret the data in the prevailing environment. Interpreting data and information can be seriously problematic. Let's see, what do you see in this picture? Probably a frog? Well, It could also have been a horse. I could have certainly influenced your decision, right? Depending on which way I printed that document. The optimum decision is driven by the quality of the decision, which in turn relies on the context information, the creative options, the quality of data and information, the solution techniques for sure, and most important, the expertise of the decision maker. But the implementation depends on appropriate timing, adequate resources, commitment to execution, and certainly changing circumstances for which we could not cater. Ladies and gentlemen, the outcome is a function of the quality and the implementation. That is why we say we should not judge the quality of the decision by the outcome. Earlier we talked about negotiating. This is where the decision maker has to negotiate. He has to negotiate with the problem solvers, the information providers, the implementers. Each of these are different people. People impacted positively or negatively. And with the manager with the money, he's the one who has a budget, the authority, and the desire. Any questions? Let's talk about the techniques. Common ranking techniques are the distribution technique, the scaling, the pros and cons, the matrix, and a few others, such as Bayesian models, game theories, expert systems, neural networks, AI, etc. Most of you have dealt with the distribution technique where you distribute 100% of something, whether it's time, bonus, resources, or assets. Then there is a scaling or Likert technique. It's simple to use and it's used in focus groups and surveys. Even your coordinator might ask, what was the trainer's expertise and knowledge like? And you can answer from 1 to 5, 1 being bad, 5 being excellent. This rating might give a false sense of absoluteness. It's all relative. Then there is the pros and cons, where you write all the goods on one side, all the bads on the other side, then you stare at it all day and then take a stab. The most common technique used to make decisions is the matrix method. It's used in performance evaluation, site selection, equipment selection, you name it. Imagine you are the fleet manager of a rental car company and you have to buy 200 cars. You start with some criteria. Then you assign some weights, naturally more to reliability because you're in the rental business. For candidates, we have 4 similar vehicles: the Honda Accord, the Toyota Camry, the Nissan Altima, and the Mitsubishi Galant. For reliability, Honda and Toyota gets more points because they're more reliable. But for price, Nissan and Mitsubishi get more because they're cheaper. For miles per gallon, let's do the same for all of them. We multiply the points by the weights and declare Honda the winner. Tomorrow morning, I have to make a presentation to the board. And in the evening, when I go home, my brother-in-law has come over for dinner. So I explained to him the whole story about what I'm doing, and then he says, hey, my uncle owns a Mitsubishi dealership. Is there something you could do for family? Of course, family is important, so what do? I look at the miles per gallon and I change it to 50. Wow. Suddenly Mitsubishi Galant is the winner. Of course, I can't be penalized for picking the 50. Just a matter of opinion. But we know what we did, right? So we need a better method. Ladies and gentlemen, a technique is what it's all about. Every evening, a golfer goes to the golf course and hits hundreds of balls just to perfect a technique. Because on the day of the competition, she can only rely on the technique. Any questions? Multi-criteria decisions and uncertainties. Your family is considering adopting a puppy. Home of Darling Puppies sends you pictures of 2 adorable puppies. Wow, they are nice. Your family has a difficult time selecting. So they agree on assigning points. 60-40, 25-75, whatever. Difficult decision? Not too bad. The next day you receive 2 more pictures. Of course, Darling Puppies thinks they were being helpful. But deciding became more difficult. Again, your family assigns points. Just when you thought you had the situation under control, you receive a total of 7 pictures. Wow, you're probably ready to give up. So the question is, which was the easiest and most reliable, 2, 4, or 7? I suppose you agree that the pair was the most reliable and the easiest. And also, as the number of contestants increased, it became more difficult. What about real-world implications? Imagine you're trying to hire a person for a senior leadership position. You identify 12 criteria. Great. Now there are 7 candidates. And there are 4 departments involved in the decision-making process. Think for a moment. With the puppies, we had difficulty deciding with just one, the cuteness criterion. How do you think you're going to handle 12 criteria and 4 decision makers? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 3D problem. Multiple criteria, multiple candidates, and multiple decision makers. Without a robust technique, we are likely to make suboptimal decisions or even make some serious mistakes. I hope you agree. If you recall, we said we have to have a process to handle our C and C decision making. We developed a 7-step process. Clearly define your objective. Identify all relevant criteria. Conduct criteria segregation. Identify all available candidates and options. Gather information in the judgment table. Assign weights to obligatory criteria. And rank candidates. As you can see, I've got the letters AHP against step 3, 6, and 7. It stands for Analytic Hierarchy Process. It is also called the multi-criteria decision analysis or the pairwise comparison technique. So the natural question is, do organizations and teams and people really use it? Well, just Google AHP and there are over 5 billion citations. In fact, there's enough citations on the internet about the use of these in real-life examples such as site selection, subcontractor selection, risk analysis, etc. The HP complete process is very complex and mathematically scary. But you don't have to worry about these complex mathematics. We provide you with the software to deal with this. We've developed our own decision-making software for our own consulting work, but we'll give it to you free of charge. It has many modules. Of course, I can't go through all of them right now. Multiple probabilities. You receive a lucrative contract to supply some minerals. Unfortunately, it's only available in the 3 West African countries of Angola, Congo, and Liberia. Availability, price, logistics, and air freights are all equal, but you must only buy from one location because of volume discount. You're told that political stabilities could disrupt supplies. Can you make a common sense decision on the best source? Not really. You don't know what's going on. So what additional information would you like or want? Well, maybe something about the likelihood of these events happening. This is called event probability. So I give you the event probability for Congo, Angola, and Liberia. Can you now make a common sense decision on the best source? Not really, because you don't know the impact of these on your contracts. So you'd like to know something about the impact probability. In the case of Congo, we had a 25% probability of riots. That was the event probability. And the impact is that you have a 20% chance that you don't have any losses, a 50% chance you would lose 30%, and a 30% chance you would lose 40%. So you now have an idea of the impact probability. We have data also for Angola and Liberia. Can we now make a common sense decision? 21 data points. Oops, too much information. Any questions? Let's look at the software. So let's take a look at multi-criteria decisions.
Multi-criteria decision making using the analytic hierarchy process. Most of the decisions we face in the real world are multi-criteria in nature. Typical examples could procurement, recruiting, locating branch officers, etc. The best way to explain this is to consider a hotel chain hiring a business development manager. They identified 6 criteria and 4 candidates. Let us now look at the AHP software that we have developed. I have set up the recruiting problem, and when I hit continue, we have the criteria and the candidates that I have already inserted. We move on to the judgment table. The criteria judgment provides pairwise comparison. All you have to do is remember 2 simple questions. Which one? How much? So the first question is, between availability and leadership, which one is important to you? Availability. Then it's asking availability and salary. You might say salary. You proceed with this. When you finish, you simply say OK, and you hit continue, and you're offered the candidate judgment, which is identical to the previous case. On this occasion, you're offered 1 criterion with multiple candidates. Once again, we answered the 2 questions. Which one? How much? Which we say which candidate is more important than the other one, and to what degree. We do this for each criterion. When you finish, press OK, and we are presented the criteria weights and the candidate weights. Once we complete the evaluation, we generate a graph using the chart maker. We see that the optimum decision is Mary. Additionally, we have 6 bands. These are known as the N-1 evaluation. Here we have removed availability. Here we have removed leadership. And here we have removed salary, etc. And if salary is not an issue, so far better candidate. Could you have made better defensible decisions relying on common sense alone? Probably not.
So would you say that the N-1 validation would make it easier for you to defend your decision? Most certainly. What about cost-benefit analysis?
Cost-benefit analysis with sub-criteria. This is a very specific application of the AHP technique. Consider typical decisions most of us face, such as bid evaluations, buying a home or a car, selecting a consultant, recruiting problems, deciding on how much insurance, site selection such as retail outlets, scheduling priorities, etc. These types of decisions are all driven by associated criteria. The cost-benefit analysis is ideally suited for this type of problem. But to simplify the discussion, let's consider the purchase of a lamp. Here we have the criteria. Here we have the candidates. And we have the sub-criteria information which appears as data. The first thing we have to do is run the AHP evaluation to determine the criteria weights. Make sure you do not use price in the AHP evaluation. Now we have the criteria weights. Note it has to add up to 100. The next thing we do is we run the AHP evaluation on the sub-criteria, and we enter the corresponding weights in these pink cells. Once this is complete, we simply look at our cost-benefit data and plot a graph. This happens automatically within our software. As you can see, the Acer and the Dell are comparable in terms of benefits, yet the Acer is significantly cheaper, so it is up to the individual to decide whether to go for the Acer or the Dell. There are a whole host of applications for this type of evaluation, limited only by the imagination. We encourage you to consider using AHP with sub-criteria when the consequences of a suboptimal decision are significant.
Would you say that a cost-benefit analysis would make it easier for you to defend your decision? Most certainly. And the final technique I want to present is one with multiple uncertainties.
Single criterion decisions with multiple uncertainties using decision trees and D-zone maps. J&J Pharmaceuticals are developing a new drug for the treatment of diabetes, thrombosis, and cholesterol. However, J&J can invest only in one of these projects. The cost of pursuing these products, for the preliminary test, we would spend $2.5 million, and for the FDA approval, there would be a cost of $500,000. The marketing department has arrived at potential revenues from these projects. Here too, there are some uncertainties. There's a potential for high revenue or low revenue. For example, for cholesterol, the high revenue would be $13 million, while the low would be $7 million. Uncertainties facing J&J now. Will the preliminary test be successful? Will the FDA approve the new drugs? Will sales generate the projected revenue? The question for J&J is which product? We can start with a 50-50 assumption for all uncertainties. and then study the impact of such assumptions on the final decision. Action plan. First, draw the DT sketch, then develop the Excel model, then plot the D-zone map, and finally study the uncertainties. Here we have the sketch for the decision tree. We have three options, and let's focus on thrombosis. If the preliminary tests are successful, then we proceed for FDA approval. And if FDA approval is granted, we proceed to market, and there is a potential for high revenue or low revenue. Similarly for the other two projects. Now to step 2, where we build the Excel decision tree, and in this case, it is for the preliminary tests. Once we complete the decision tree model, with one click, we can create the D-zone map. The model creates 3 zones for the 3 decisions: thrombosis, cholesterol, and diabetes. The zone in which the red pointer lands is the recommended decision. Here we have 3 axes. One is for diabetes, the next is for cholesterol, and up here is the thrombosis. When I change the probability of success, the decision is thrombosis. If I change the probability of thrombosis success to 70%, again the recommendation is for thrombosis. What is important to notice is the distance of the pointer from these demarcation lines tells you the degree of freedom you have with regard to your assumptions. In this case, when the probability of diabetes success drops below 46%, the decision should be for thrombosis. Zone map such as this gives you tremendous flexibility to understand the sensitivity of your assumptions to the final decision. We repeat the same process for the FDA approval and the projected revenue, and we can see under all 3 scenarios, the recommended decision is to proceed with diabetes project. Could you have made better defensible decisions relying on common sense alone? Probably not.
Would you say that a decision zone map would make it easier for you to defend your decision? Undoubtedly. All right, we've come to the end of this session. Time constraints. Any questions? I think it's time that I help you through with some questions. Base rate neglect in decision making has caused serious trouble. If you recall, you did the blood test. So the explanation will really open your eyes.
The blood test. Your annual physical shows you have high cholesterol. So you ask the doctor, are you certain? And the doctor says, typically we see 1 in about 1,000 people affected. This test has been around for many years and is 99% accurate in confirming or denying these ailments. Question. What is the likelihood that you have high cholesterol? A, less than 10%. B, about 50%. C, greater than 90%. Now, 99% accurate means if we conduct 100 tests, 99 of the results would be trustworthy, and we would only have 1 false result, positive or negative. So imagine 100,000 people are tested, and we create a table. Row A is for those who have the ailments, and row B is for those who do not have the ailments. Now we would expect 100 of these 100,000 people to have the ailments, because it is 1 in 1,000. And hence 99,900 would not have the ailments. Now because the test is 99% accurate, we would see 99 positive results and 1 false negative. That is, 1 person who actually has the ailment will be told that he does not have the ailment. Fair enough? Now of the 99,900 people who do not have the ailment, 1% unfortunately would be tested as false positive. That is, they would be told that they actually have the disease when they don't have the disease. And 98,901 people would be told correctly that they do not have the ailments. The tests yield 1,098 positive results. However, only 99 are true positives. What does this tell us? If you are tested positive, even with a 99% reliable test, there is only a 9.2% chance that you have these ailments. Yes, less than 10%. And the doctor wants to put you on medication. So we presented to you multi-criteria decisions with N-1 validation.
We showed you the value of cost-benefit analysis, and we also showed you the importance of D-zone mapping. Any questions? What next? Say great message, it was informative, and then go back to the same old? A wise man once said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We demonstrated that our common sense, etc., was weak at best. And if you are not trained, you are likely to live in a world of suboptimal decisions. Every action is a decision, and every interaction is a negotiation. In life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. Analytical decision making is the answer. With a little effort, we can change, and we can do better.
The only person in the world who offers training in analytical decision making, has a complete suite of related products, and gives his software and books totally free.
Open challenge, check it out.
We train with an emphasis on the 3 M's: the message, the messenger, and the method. We have in-house workshops and public workshops on decision making and negotiating. Do let us know if we can help you. Thank you for watching.
Remember, every action is a decision and every interaction is a negotiation.